Hello and welcome back to Perspective Podcast with myself, Jess and Millie. And today we're here with special guest Brad from Design Truth.
Hello everyone.
So Brad, if you just want to introduce yourself for our listeners, tell us a bit about what you do and why you're here today.
So my name's Brad and I run a business called Design Truth, which is like an industrial design community. I'm here in Nottingham today because I was lecturing the students earlier, probably being like a dad to them, around helping them potentially find some work.
So obviously you founder and you run Design Truth.
Correct.
So for people that don't know, do you just want to tell them what it is, how it came about and why you do it?
Yeah, so Design Truth actually started off as a podcast. So it's a bit weird kind of being here.
Yeah.
Flashbacks. It started in 2020 during that thing called COVID. I just think we had two choices. It was either bake banana bread or start a podcast, and I decided to go with the latter. People started to listen to it over that period of time, which is a bit mad. And then COVID kind of finished, and it was more, well, what does everyone actually look like?
Yeah.
And so therefore we kind of did these events. You've been to one of them?
I have. Yeah.
Was it any good?
It was very good. Very fun.
So,
Learned a lot, met a lot of people.
There we go. So yeah, Design Truth is ultimately just about implementing a bit of community within the world of industrial design, kind of reshaping the culture a little bit, and it's also just really fun, to be honest with you. I was just kind of entering a period of time in life where I was like, I just want to do something that's a bit more fun, rather than just working for the sake of it. And so whilst I'm still in my 20s, I'll have some fun, and then we'll see what happens when I get a bit older. But yeah, that's kind of Design Truth in a nutshell.
Brilliant, thank you. So you originally started in recruitment, is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm actually a recruiter, so I'm not a designer.
A misconception.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes people assume that you've been to uni as well.
Really?
I'm joking. So when I left school, got some GCSEs, and unfortunately we couldn't afford to go to university, so I had to go out and get a job. And I started in recruitment. It was just a way to make a bit of money. And I actually originally joined a completely different area of the business, to product design, and I think it was like quite early on. So I was in oil and gas. Probably the most antithesis of like product design.
Yeah.
And then a war broke out somewhere, and the price of oil didn't like it, and basically it was quite early on. They were just like, "Not any work for you anymore." And there was this old guy in the corner called Paul, and he was like, "Yeah, you can come and work for me." And that was like, a bit longer. And and then went to see Henry Hoover on my second day with him down in Chard. Learned how things are manufactured and stuff, and I've just kind of stumbled across a few sentences that makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about. But yeah,
brilliant.
not a designer, and don't pretend to be either.
If you had gone to uni, what would you have wanted to do?
That's a good question. I would have been a sports journalist. So when I was at school, I actually did some internships. I think they were actually unpaid when I look back as well, which is slightly ironic. I for my sins, I had a football Twitter account when I was like 15 at school. And I remember doing work experience at the local paper and did everything to like get myself into the best possible position. But as unfortunately, life circumstances changed and I had to earn some money. But I'd have been a sports journalist.
You say kind of about not being able to afford to go to university, and I think within industrial design, product design, would you say there's a level of classism in that, in terms of, I know you've done
going
a little bit of work into that?
Well, we spoke a bit about that today, didn't we? This kind of idea of because we've got this award coming up. I'm really bad at promoting this kind of stuff, but we're actually doing a student award this year. Design Truth, where different parts of the kind of community are coming together, and we're going to give a student some paid work experience, which is going to be great. And I'm hoping that they're going to live close to Bournemouth because I'm the one that's actually paying for their travel. So if you do live close to Bournemouth, you'll probably win. Just for that. Just for that. And we've got this big event coming up in July hopefully with Seymour Powell as part of their 40th year anniversary. And it's going to be a bit of a showcase where the person that wins, we're going to give them this award, which is a really nice thing. And the kind of the premise of it was that I'm slightly scared because I'm going to Loughborough next week. I am slightly scared to say this out loud, but
go on.
The award's only eligible to those that have been at state school educated. Something that my sin's quite passionate about. Just because I've been to all these design events and things, and you just kind of go, wow, everyone's from a different walk of life to what I've experienced growing up and that kind of stuff. And just got chatting with a few people about it and was like, what can we do that makes a bit of an impact rather than just talking about it? Yeah, it'd be quite exciting. Hopefully you enter.
Yes.
Get your entries in.
We'll promote
There'll be no bias. I'm not judging. So
No.
yeah, to answer your question, I answered that really poorly, but to answer your question, I think there is, but I wouldn't say there is any intention. I just think it's just a byproduct of unfortunate circumstances. But yeah, there is not many state school working class people within industrial design.
Yeah.
So if you are out there, feel free to come to Design Truth. You'll be welcome with open arms.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Did you say about how if the unpaid internships kind of impact that? Do you want to talk
I just think
about
that's like almost like symbolic of it. This kind of idea, I think someone asked earlier, it might have even been Liam, like this idea of like, should you work for free? Absolutely no way. I just don't think anyone should ever value themselves so little.
Yeah.
So yeah, the internship piece is almost like a symbolic reference of that, where if you're from a certain walk of life, have the privilege to be able to work for free.
Yeah.
And I just think it's almost you should have a duty of care for other people in a similar boat. I probably should be a politician really, but I get my back up about these kind of things, and yeah, it feels quite symbolic.
Yeah.
Like we're recording this, is it Milan Design Week this week?
Yeah.
Where everyone's kind of gushing over furniture and lamps and stuff, and it's like, wow, like this is not design. Like this is not what design should be projecting as its superior thing.
Yeah.
And so like going to Weatherspoons, 2 for $5, all that
Who
kind
doesn't?
of stuff. That's me. That's the kind of the culture clash, I guess, of like Design Truth, where it's a bit more unhinged, and then you've got like the design media and all that kind of stuff, where it's a little bit more, to be honest, a bit pretentious.
Yeah.
So we kind of are the antithesis of design in its traditional sense, and maybe that's why people feel a bit more part of it than normal. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that definitely does. Yeah, for sure.
No, that's great. I think one thing I'd ask is, I know I've kind of been in this position myself when I was looking for placements, kind of reaching out to places. What kind of advice would you give to a student if they're reaching out and being offered work that it all seems fine and then they're saying it's unpaid? How do you kind of respond to that?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because particularly in this kind of climate, because ultimately there are fewer opportunities out there, so you almost feel forced to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And it's not your fault. I think just speaking more broadly, I probably shouldn't say it's on a university production, but there are too many students going through the system, and so like the whole supply and demand thing, it does create this behaviour where, because there is so much supply of student, you can get them to work for nothing because there'll always be someone else that will accept it. So it is hard. It's just I think if you're in a position where you can afford to do it for nothing, I would just have that kind of broader view of maybe others can't, and you should do the right thing and say no.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if more people said no, I think it would happen less.
Yeah.
And that's the way I would frame it, rather than blaming businesses and all this kind of stuff, who are also, by the way, going through some quite economic challenges themselves, and probably their heart is as much in the right place as maybe you might not project. So yeah, I think it's as much about student learning and understanding, just as much as about businesses doing the right thing. Unfortunately, there's just too many people in industrial design that that can afford to do it, and they
Yeah.
actually don't see the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had very frank discussions with people at our events and things, and tried to challenge that point of view, but it's quite embedded in, like, they just
Yeah.
don't see the problem, and so if they don't see the problem, then it's never
Yeah.
going to change. But I think it starts from the ground up. It doesn't necessarily start with businesses. I think it's like hopefully like this generation coming through in terms of they're a bit more of a principled bunch than maybe generations gone by, and so maybe they have a bit more duty of care, and so that's the hope anyway.
The vision.
The vision, yeah.
So in your lecture today, you spoke quite a lot about attitude versus skill. So how
Okay.
do you think this looks in practice?
Yeah, so the lecture is about I get asked a lot, like, how do you, like as you say, like, how do you get a placement, how do you get a job?
Yeah.
And I think almost like to take a slightly different perspective on it, where it's quite ironic coming into a university and talking about it, but there's always a lot of focus around developing a skill set in terms of you need to get better at X or Y. That might be a piece of software that you're really, really good at, or your visual communication, or whatever that may be. That's always where the emphasis is. And I just think, actually, when I speak to employers, or whether it be informally or whatever, and I ask them, well, why did you employ that person? They never really say, well, they're really good at Keyshot.
Yeah.
They say, they're really nice, they're really good with clients, or something like that. And that's the first thing they'll always say. And so the way I kind of look at kind of trying to find people work or building teams and that kind of thing is that it's all about the individual first, rather than the skill set. Like before this, I was it's been like a full media day. Like there were these two
Yeah.
people interviewing me earlier. I was chatting to Liam about it, and it's just like, I don't need to see that person's work to know they've got the right attitude.
Yeah.
I don't need to see whether they're good at Keyshot. A lot of it is about attitude, and that's why I say fair play for you to come into a design trip event. Like when you are, a student, like Liam was, it's daunting as hell. Like you're meeting all these
Yeah.
industry people. Like, what do I say? Like, how do I introduce myself? So I always say anyone that like comes to a design trip event who's a student, I'm like, fair play to you. That says a lot about you and your character. And I've always found over the last couple of years that ones that do turn up tend to be quite good, and they tend to get jobs, fun enough, but it's because their attitude's in the right place. So that's kind of the premise of the talk, was why do we put so much emphasis on skill, when actually I think the differentiator between getting a job and not getting a job is often down to you as an individual and the way you carry yourself, rather than are you good at X or Y.
What would you class as a good attitude?
That's a good one. It's one of them when you can just always, like the whole restaurant thing, where like if you go to a bad restaurant, you'll go out there, don't go there. Whereas if you go to a good restaurant, you kind of keep it to yourself a little bit, right? So everyone knows what a bad attitude looks like. For me, I think I spoke about it on the talk. It was just more about this kind of idea of standards. So like, I'll give you an example. Actually, I was talking to someone who's not a student. She was looking for work a couple of weeks ago, and we were just on a call. And it was really obvious that she wasn't really that interested in the job she was applying for. But why are you applying for them? And just like, why are you going through this process of half-assed application, rejection, half-assed? Like, why are you putting yourself into that mental position? If you're not really up for it, don't apply for it.
Yeah.
Like, and so I think a good attitude is just more, I suppose, being positive is one thing, which I know is a bit hard when you put the news on, but like, don't watch the news. Just being generally optimistic. I think gratitude's a massive thing as well. So just being appreciative of people's time. That is something that I think can be just like a differentiator between you and another student at another university that's like applying for the same job. Is that I can give like a really simple, I know I gave the example earlier of like a name on a file, but another one is like little things like, okay, you've got an interview at 3:00 and you message them 3 hours before, just say, are you still okay for 3:00? That is something where like you're giving the impression that you can manage your own time, you're being appreciative that of their commitments. It's a small little thing, but you can see how that gives a different impression of you in comparison to someone else who doesn't even accept the calendar invite. You see how that can just be the thing that actually gets you the job, rather than I don't know, work on your portfolio, that kind of stuff. I think a lot of it is, if you work on your attitude, you will. Even in this job market, you will get something, because employers will always look for people that just they come across really well. They can mold them into, as a designer. As if the attitude's not there, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So that was the context of the talk.
It's interesting because, I've not gone for loads of jobs, but for the dissertation and interviewing lots of different people, obviously you do reach out to a lot. And I did find that if I was polite and appreciated the fact that and acknowledged the fact that they were taking time out of their day to actually help me, and just like 5 minutes and whatever I could get from it and things, it's interesting because everything you're saying there, it sounds like common sense, but it does line up with asking for someone's help. And then actually when you do talk to people and just have normal conversations, it leads to interesting places that you haven't like really considered. And I remember one of my biggest boundaries when I was trying to talk to people is I just had in my head, you kind of touched on it in the lecture, that I was like pestering them and that I was getting in their way and that it was a massive favour for them to talk to me. But actually a lot of the time they were really interested in what I was doing. They liked the fact that I was interested in their perspective. And they also, a lot of them like were kind of, I've worked with them outside of that since because they've been interested in what I'm doing, and actually I'm not an inconvenience. They could learn from me as well. And I think that was like, it's lining up with a lot of what you're saying. Like you just need to change your mentality a lot of the time and be like, exactly as you said in the lecture, you're not pestering someone, you have something to give. It's like more of an equal partnership.
I feel that too.
Yeah.
You helped me with mine, which is very useful.
In terms of the recruitment bit, as much as I'm not going to bore people with recruitment, but one of the things it does teach you is this kind of idea that you are on an equal footing, because ultimately you're in a job where you're always trying to develop business, win work, speak to people. So you just you're bulletproof to rejection effectively is kind of what it is. And so you're kind of at a stage in your careers now where you're building that resilience of rejection, unfortunately. You should almost embrace it to a certain degree.
This is about building self-confidence as well. It's in terms of your personality and then obviously your portfolio, CV, things like that, to kind of make sure you come across as
quite a daunting profession, isn't it? Because can you think of many other walks of life where you're basically exposing yourself in terms of, this is my work, this is my final year project in your guys' case, and you're just opening yourself up to feedback.
Yeah.
Whereas in other walks of life, it's like, well, can this person use Excel? Can this person do this? Can this person do that? Whereas it's like, just generally being creative is quite a vulnerable thing. And so you have to be a little bit more resilient because you're basically having to take feedback, even from people you don't really want feedback from,
it is hard.
I guess you're kind of, as I say this, I kind of realize that this is what every job is like. You kind of, it's your mind that they're hiring you for that. But especially with creativity, that like exactly as you said with the attitude, but your skill is in how you can approach and problem solve and change things and whatever it is, whether it's design or other things, similar to it. So that's what they're trying to gauge, which is obviously when they're looking at your projects and stuff as well. I think it's only hit me at the end of university that your portfolio isn't about all of the pretty pictures and like how well designed it is and stuff. It's actually more about how you've approached a problem and what you've done to change it.
And how you can communicate that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think, it does make you very vulnerable when you open up the inner workings of your mind onto PDF to look at. But I guess can't avoid that.
Unfortunately, if you want a career in design, then that's unfortunately something you've signed up for.
Take the hit.
You've got to take the hit. Sorry about that.
Have you got any advice? Because I think one thing for me that would be really scary is going to these networking events by myself, which is just what you did.
You go by yourself?
Yeah.
Did I not give you a +1?
Yeah,
You just couldn't find anyone?
Oh, well, I don't think anybody... I'm like the only one that lives near London.
Oh,
okay, so, it was just me. But it was fine because everybody was really friendly. And I spoke to Liam there as well.
Yeah.
Oh. Would you have any advice for people when they go to these events or things like that?
We do... Our events are a little bit different in the sense of... I can't compare it to other events, but our design trip events are invite only. It's done that way for a couple of reasons, mainly because... Actually, I probably need to be quite careful with my wording just in case someone's listening to this, but we like to... We've got a duty of care with let's say, the people that we want in the building. Like, one of the things that's really been a bit of a challenge actually is like, fortunate in a way, lots of people want to come to a Design Truth event, like for some reason, like it's quite, weirdly overbearing, to be honest with you. Like the last event we put on, I sold a ticket inside 8 seconds or something like that. Before the thing went out to say, do you want a ticket? Like the first email was in 8 seconds, and I actually filmed it just to see how long it would take.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, these people are like, need to get a life. So in answer to your question, like in terms of what we do with students is we always, we do allow a +1 for students, but also our students like has a very limited capacity. So we kind of cap it. It's normally like 1 per sponsor. And then we allow them to bring a friend, effectively. I didn't actually realise you came by yourself. Fair play to you. I don't like the idea of a student going by themselves in a weird way. I don't want to be like a parent, but like they always let them to bring a friend, or so they've got someone else they can engage with and talk to. And then actually just generally, it's one of the things I have to do during the event is make a bit of an effort, go up to the student. You want me to introduce you to anyone? What do you want to get out today? You've seen the guest list, all that kind of stuff, and introduce them, and then start the conversation for them effectively, and then just disappear in the background without them kind of knowing. So it's just the general advice I would give is just, rather than going in and feeling like you have to introduce yourself, hi, I'm Jessica, and what bring you, like all that kind of stuff. I'm a student. To be honest, they know you're a student. I mean, you look half the age of anyone else, so they're gonna know. They don't need, like, they know you're a student. So just go up and go, what brings you here? Why are you here? It's a very simple question. They'll go, oh, well, I'm here to see a friend or colleague, or what brings you here? And you're like, and you can start to have that conversation, and then they'll go, oh, hi, I'm Mike, by the way. And then you go, oh, I'm Jen. And then all of a sudden you've got a conversation going. And then I think the biggest piece of advice is to just not be offended if someone doesn't really want to talk to you, or they have to disappear, or they go to the bar and they come back and then they're speaking to someone else. You're like, oh, was it something I said? Or, it's a busy room, they might be there for a different reason. So the advice probably, my end, is probably less so on what do I say, but it's more just don't be offended if someone does something else. Just, you'll find your tribe. You'll find someone else there. There'll be another student there you can talk to, and then they'll probably bring their boss that's there, and you can start talking to the boss, and then he or she will then introduce you to someone else, and see how all of a sudden you can, by the end of the night, you've already had some meaningful conversations. And then the next time you go, I met you at the last one, how are you? So it gets easier the more you kind of do it.
So what is next for Design Truth? Can you give us any exclusives or sneak peeks? No.
I'm trying to think of what I've already put. I'm really bad at like keeping secrets.
It's a good thing sometimes.
So I just say it. Like if I have a meeting with a sponsor or something, I'm like, I'll just say it, rather than like, I probably should wait, or like we've got an event in so-and-so or something. I'm normally just like, oh yeah, we're doing this thing, rather than we should wait.
Build the tension, suspense.
So we've got one, we've got one in May in Clerkenwell, which is, I don't like Clerkenwell. I appreciate I'm talking to potential furniture designers here, but that's just like, nah, not for me. So I've upset a lot of furniture designers actually, based on a graphic that I did. I don't know if you saw it. But it was like Clerkenwell Design Academy, we graffitied over it, and we put the Design Truth logo over it. We got some very angry old men messaging me about that. So I'm not going to apologise, but
nope.
So yeah, we're doing one in May, and then we're down with a design agency called Matter. In Bath.
They've worked.
I think they've got some kind of connection here with the uni. So we're in their offices in June 13. They wanted to do it the week after, but then I found out it was England Denmark on the Euros. I was like, absolutely no chance. There's one priority here, and it's not Design Truth. So we're there in June. So that's all I can really reveal, because I don't really.
We like the transparency.
Yeah, I just don't really plan that far ahead, to be honest with you. Someone will just come to me and go, "You want to do an event?" And I'll go, "Yeah, go on then." And then that will kind of be it, really. So, I'll let you know if we're doing any others, but that's the plan for now.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode with the perspective, Jess, Lily, and Brad, and we'll see you next time.